Well, hello everyone. My name is Liliana Encinas, and I am the bilingual public outreach coordinator here for Santa Barbara City Fire Department. And we are highlighting Fire Prevention Week this year. And due to some changes with COVID, we're also doing our Fire Prevention Week virtually, right? And so we do have a special guest with us today, and this is our interim fire marshal, Ryan DiGiulio. So I'll let him introduce himself, and then we're going to get into what is Fire Prevention Week, why it's important to us, and what we can do to participate. So, Ryan?
Thanks, Liliana. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan DiGiulio. Like Liliana said, I'm the interim fire marshal here for the Santa Barbara City Fire Department. Fire Prevention Week plays a big role in our department every year. So we're excited to highlight some of the things you can do to keep yourself and your family safe, and how we can partner with you to get some of that stuff accomplished.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. So, Ryan, what's Fire Prevention Week?
So Fire Prevention Week is a national, actually it's done across the entire country, and it actually celebrates fire prevention. And it stems from the Great Chicago Fire that happened back in the 1800s. It actually happened during this week of October. So the United States, through some national fire organizations, decided to make this the Fire Prevention Week to kind of bolster and implement ways and techniques folks can keep themselves and their families more safe.
Yes, and I think it's important that we, commemorate that event. It was a huge event that happened in the 1800s, and a great loss in our country. We had hundreds of people that lost their lives, structure, homes. I mean, it was pretty impactful for the community. And so I think that, years later, decades later, we're still reminding folks to practice fire safety. And so, as your role as interim fire marshal, what do you see as an important measure to take to prevent fires in the home, or some tips or suggestions you might have for our community?
Sure. I think October is a great time of year, not only to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire, but here locally in our area, we all know it's fire season here. So it October kind of coincides with a lot of different things that are on our radar, and what you can do as individuals to help yourself and help us prevent fires that can happen here. Unfortunately, we have a long history, and some of us have been around in the fire service or residents here in the city for decades and have been through numerous types of fires. So we do have a Ready, Set, Go program that deals specifically with our wildland area and our kind of urban interface area. But I think today and this week, we're going to focus a little bit more on things you can do on the day-to-day with your family and your neighbors. I think a couple of things I'd like to bring up is first and foremost, smoke detectors save lives. That I could give you numerous studies and copious amounts of data that show how effective smoke detectors are when used properly and how they save lives. It's a very inexpensive tool to keep you and your family safe within your residence. So we're really trying to push the smoke detector message out to folks this year. Another thing that kind of coincides with that is, like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, we're not immune to natural disasters in our community. So if you and your family come up with a simple plan of either how to get out of your house in an emergency, where to meet up, have contacts that are maybe out of the area that can check on you and that you can check on them. All these things is a conversation, over a meal or after school or on a Sunday at a barbecue. And a 5-minute conversation can go a long way, because unfortunately, when an event happens, sometimes you're already too late. So the more we can prepare to do things like that, the better we'll be as a community as a whole, and the better you and your families will be.
Absolutely, Ryan. And you said it very well. there's measures that we can take at home, right? And we can include the entire family too. I mean, you can be very young and still know, like our campaign says this year, learn the sounds of fire safety. So you can start with that at home, and teaching young children the importance of having alarms at home, and what the different sounds are. And in that, the sounds of fire safety, we're also going to be talking this week about the sirens and the lights, and when we respond to emergencies, and what that looks like. Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well, maybe for our adults, as a reminder of what we do when we hear the sirens?
Sure. As you've probably experienced in your own life, fire engines, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, other emergency vehicles are loud, and they're bright, and they're noisy. And there's a purpose behind all that. It is so that we can get to wherever we need to go as fast as we can. Time is of an essence in emergency services and in emergency medicine and during fires. And the more we're impeded on our access to those emergencies, the more time goes by on the clock. So what we're trying to tell folks and remind folks, because we all took the DMV test, and it's one of the questions on the DMV test, is that if you hear or see lights and sirens, pull to the right as far as you can. Especially in spots in Santa Barbara that are narrow streets, and some of them have some of our larger streets have medians in the middle that we can't go around. So the more you give us some room by pulling over to the right, the quicker we can get to where we need to go in a hurry. So I know a lot of people, I've been on engines before where people will just freeze and they don't know what to do. If you can get to the right in a safe manner, please do so. If not, we will try to go around you, but just be leery that costs us time to do that.
Absolutely, Ryan. And I thought it was very timely that we talk about that. With the theme this year, sounds of fire safety, but this is all, this is an emergency. And if it were your emergency, you'd want to get those responders there as soon as possible. And so that's why we're reminding our residents to pull to the right for sirens and lights. And you mentioned it too. If you are in an intersection, in the middle of an intersection, don't stop there. Go through and pull to the right as soon as it's safe to do so. And sometimes we're distracted with the phone, with the radio, with children in the car, pets. And then when we realize it, the engines or the ambulances are right behind us, and it gives us little time to react. And so that's why we have to drive safely and be aware of our surroundings, so that way our responders can get to that emergency and attend to it as quickly as possible. This is wonderful, Ryan. All of this information that you're sharing with us, I'm sure our Santa Barbara residents are appreciating it very much. You talked a little bit about having that fire safety plan, and I think that we can go into depth on what this means, but I think that it's important that we remember something as simple as EDITH is what we share with folks, which is exit drills in the home. And I think it's important that the people not only learn or write down what their plan's going to be like, but actually practice it. What do you have to say about like drills or practicing these evacuations or fire escapes?
Yeah, I think the more we practice things, right, the more it becomes second nature to us. And especially with our younger community and our elderly community, the more we practice those things over and over, it becomes second nature. So as I mentioned before, it's something that takes little time to practice and implement, and it can reap giant benefits in the long run if an emergency were to take place. So when everybody's sitting down watching TV or on their devices or whatever, it's as simple as somebody coming in and going, practice, fire in the back. What do we do? Right. And then everybody tries to implement the program that they've come up with in their own residence to, meet outside in a safe spot, account for everybody. I think a part of the EDITH aspect that I think is good to reiterate with our folks too, is if you do live in a condominium complex or an apartment complex, part of that plan after you get your family out is to check on those that maybe aren't ambulatory, that can't walk as well, or the elderly community. Santa Barbara has a rich tradition of a small town and a real tight-knit community. So we should practice that even in fire safe areas. If you're in an apartment building and there's an elderly person that may not be able to get out of the house, knock on the door, introduce yourself, and go, hey, we're just doing an emergency plan with our family. Can I come by and check on you if something were to happen? I think that speaks volumes to not only fire prevention and safety, but also just kind of the way our community has developed over the years.
Absolutely, Ryan. And we talk a lot about also disaster preparedness and readiness, and that's a huge component to it. Knowing your neighbor, because we essentially become those first responders if there's a major event, right? If there's a disaster, if there's an earthquake, a major fire. And so it makes sense for us to check in with our neighbors, to maybe include them in our plan, whatever we can do, right? Because disasters know no boundaries, right? And so it's not like it's your house over there and my house over here. Really, if it's a major event, we can all be impacted. And so that's why it's so important for us to check in with our neighbors. If we have that this type of living situation where it's an apartment complex, condominiums, anything like that, it really entails that whole community to be prepared as a whole, right? If they have young children that are there during the day and perhaps mom and dad are at work, they're with the caregiver, or people have pets at home. I mean, it circles around and it includes everyone. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Ryan. Anything else that you might want to add to remind our residents to be fire safe this October?
Yeah, sure. There's not a lot of mention during Fire Prevention Week of fire safety in the workplace. We speak a lot about what it's like inside your own residence or your home. There's also a component when you go to work every day. Don't be afraid or embarrassed to take some of these principles to your workplace too, and ask your supervisor, hey, do we have a plan if something were to happen inside of our building? Does everybody here know how to use a fire extinguisher properly? There's a plethora of information that we can give you on how to utilize fire extinguishers correctly, what to do in a place of business if something were to happen. So I just tell folks too, even when you go to your daily jobs, fire prevention doesn't stay at home. It goes with you wherever you go. So the more folks we have implemented these practices in the community, the better off everybody's going to be in the long run. So it's just something else to think about in your workplace, on your day-to-day lives.
Absolutely, Ryan. You've said it so well. We have to practice safety everywhere we are, right? And we take a month kind of to talk about that, a month out of the year, but we should include preparedness and safety in our day-to-day lives. And I think that we model that for our children, for our adolescents, and then for our elders, also reminding them. When we were speaking about smoke alarms or carbon monoxide detectors, some people sleep through them. And so there's alarms that are customized, right? For maybe folks that are hearing impaired, maybe for our adolescents that, there's studies that some of them sleep right through a loud alarm. So talk about this in your plan, and how are you going to practice safety? So this is wonderful information, Ryan. We have, like you said, a plethora of information we can share with our community. I serve as the public outreach coordinator for the community, and I'm happy to come to your business, to your school, organization, wherever it is that you need this information or education for your constituency. We can absolutely do that. Of course, we have to take some safety precautions due to COVID, but we're working around it, but we're still getting our message across.
Indeed. Yeah. And just so the community knows, I've just got to say, Liliana is outstanding at her job. Please take full advantage of her skills and her talent. She is above and beyond anything we have had here before in the public education realm. And if you're not reaching out to Liliana, you're really missing out on an opportunity to take advantage of her skills and talent for you and your family and your workplace and the whole community.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. Well, I'm happy to assist the community and I greatly appreciate your time today. I know it was a brief reminder, but I think it's important that our community hears from you why we have to practice fire safety, especially this week, the month of October, and then the rest of the year.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Ileana. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining with us today. Feel free to contact the Santa Barbara City Fire Department if you have any more questions or would like some more information on how to be better prepared. Thank you so much, Ryan.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.